non-essential travel outside of Canada.
A look tonight at a quiet Pearson Airport. Normally the Friday before March break, it would be packed. But the Canadian government is now saying do not travel out of the country. Plus, major new closures announced by the City of Toronto late today will impact your plans if you're staying here. First, though, to the latest numbers. 20 new cases of COVID-19 confirmed today, bringing the total in Ontario to 80. Hoping to slow the spread, the province is now recommending against non-essential out-of-country travel. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley joins us live. Mike, provincial officials holding an emergency cabinet meeting late today.
Yes, Chris, a highly unusual Friday afternoon cabinet meeting. It was held by teleconference, and I'm told it was focused on figuring out what the province's most critical needs are in this pandemic. Premier Ford said that the government is looking at additional measures to support businesses and workers, especially those who cannot work from home. And he says that the government will spare no expense to support Ontario's families during this difficult time.
Just hours before health officials warned against it, these travelers jetted off on their international vacations.
Lots of hand sanitizer and masks and all of that kind of stuff, so it's different this year. We're otherwise excited.
Ontario's medical officer of health is now strongly advising you to avoid all non-essential travel outside of Canada. The same message from the country's top public health doctor too.
By making the choice to stay at home and not travel outside of Canada, you are protecting yourself, your family, and doing your part to help us slow the spread of coronavirus and protect the most vulnerable in our communities.
Under Ontario's new rules, children who do leave Canada will be required to self-isolate for 14 days on their return. It's not the only new directive from Ontario's top doctor. He recommends that all large events and public gatherings of more than 250 people should be immediately suspended. He asked all universities and colleges to consider putting classes online. Many universities quickly did just that, including U of T, York, Carleton, and Western.
Now, clearly, we're taking measures to try to slow down the local spread of the disease, which is absolutely critical.
All licensed childcare centers are being told to screen all children, staff, and visitors for any symptoms or travel history related to COVID-19. While the province has not ordered daycares to shut down, school boards in Toronto and elsewhere announced closures today. Also, new guidelines on who should get tested for coronavirus. That includes people who've both been in contact with a confirmed case and are showing symptoms. As well, hospital patients, long-term care residents, or healthcare workers who come down with an acute respiratory illness.
I worked through the SARS as a bedside nurse.
The head of the province's nurses union questions whether Ontario's health system was prepared for this new pandemic.
I think we're behind the 8 ball and we're trying to catch up.
Now, late this afternoon, Ontario's top bureaucrats sent out this memo telling the province's 50,000 members of the public service to work remotely if they can for the next 3 weeks. Chris?
All right, Mike, so many big developments today. We know that there's 79 cases confirmed of COVID-19 in the province, but we're also hearing reports from hospitals that they're seeing surges in emergency rooms. Tell us about that.
Yes, Chris, a 30% surge in the number of people walking into emergency rooms here in Toronto in just the past few days. And there is a reminder, I just spoke to a senior emergency department doctor who said you should only go to the ER if you are really ill. If you have symptoms and if you have reason to believe you have COVID-19, like you've traveled to an affected area or have come into contact with a positive case, you can actually get tested at these assessment centers that are set up outside of the ERs. You should not be necessarily going into the ER because they've got other sick patients to deal with.
An important reminder. Thanks, Mike. Now to Toronto's response, and in the past hour, the city announcing sweeping new closures of city buildings, all in an effort to slow down the increase in COVID-19 cases. Lauren Pelly joins us live from City Hall. Lauren, we've also just learned that the mayor is now in self-isolation.
That's right. Mayor John Tory, you won't be seeing him here or anywhere else for the next 12 days. That's because he recently came back from a business trip to London, England. And there's a new directive from Toronto's medical officer of health that if you have been outside the country, you should be self-isolating for 14 days. That is just one of the new recommendations we heard just recently in this room. Another big one is massive sweeping closures, as you said, of multiple types of city facilities. Take a listen.
City-operated March break camps are cancelled. All licensed child care centres, community and recreation centres, greenhouses and conservatories, arenas, pools, fitness centres and ski hills are closed. Libraries are closed. City operated museums and galleries are closed. Council and committee meetings are suspended for the current meeting cycle.
So as you heard, this room will be staying empty for this cycle, and these services are supposed to be back by April 5th. But as we know, this is a rapidly evolving situation in Toronto, with 12 new cases here identified today alone. So there could be other changes down the line. We've also learned that all event permits for city facilities are also canceled. Wedding ceremony permits, however, will be honored. And various essential city services, things like your water, garbage collection, emergency services like fire and paramedics, those, of course, will still be operational. Chris?
All right, so that handles the cancellations, but you also learned about some of the city's other COVID-19 plans today.
That's right, Chris. As the city is trying to stay functioning even amid these widespread closures, there are those essential pieces that have to keep in motion. The city now has an emergency response center set up. We're currently at a level 2, which means it's going around the clock. And we got a look inside today to see how they're going to keep the city functioning amid this outbreak.
Toronto's Emergency Operations Centre is buzzing with hushed activity. This nerve centre is where city leaders stay in constant touch with their frontline workers, from paramedics to the fire department to the TTC, making sure they have the support they need as the crisis worsens.
This is an accelerated situation. It absolutely is. We have information coming in and situations changing.
The general manager of the city's Office of Emergency Management says the centre is now running 24 hours a day, much like it did during crises like the ice storm or SARS. A key piece involves maintaining staffing levels.
One of the pieces of work that has been ongoing for some time and is continuing is planning for things. What are the impacts, hypothetically, of a 10% reduction in staff, or 25 or even 50% reduction in staff?
How do we realign our work to ensure that the water's always on, that our emergency services, our ambulances will always be available, that the power stays on? We have detailed preparedness plans in place.
Toronto's Board of Health chair says the city is also ramping up infection control measures at shelters and public buildings, while the TTC is using hospital-grade disinfectant to regularly clean transit vehicles.
We have done detailed assessment of all the city's stockpiles, from personal protective equipment like masks right down to hand sanitizer. And so that preparatory work has been underway since mid-January.
City officials say it's all hands on deck to prevent a sudden spread of the virus.
We don't want to see everybody get COVID-19 at the same time. That would overburden our healthcare system and have a terrible impact on our economy.
So as the city is striving to keep everyone safe, of course, there are still recommendations for what you and I can do to protect ourselves and others. That includes social distancing, staying away from large crowds, not going to work if you feel unwell, and of course, washing your hands for at least 20 seconds as often as you can. Chris?
All right, Lauren, thank you very much. Metrolink says it will reduce its services amid COVID-19 concerns starting Wednesday. In a statement today, the transit agency says there will be a selective reduction in GO Train, bus, and Up Express service in continued support of provincial action and to protect Ontarians from COVID-19. It goes on to say that the changes will take effect starting on Wednesday, March 18th, and revised schedules will be available by this Sunday at noon. There are closures and cancellations all around the GTA. Archbishop Thomas Cardinal Collins is even asking Catholic parishes to cancel public mass this weekend. For an up-to-date list of everything that's closed, be sure to check our website, cbc.ca/Toronto. There were some wild scenes at some GTA grocery stores again today. Long lines and people grabbing whatever is left on the shelves. Lisa Shing has been looking into the frenzied buying and joins us live from the No Frills on Front Street. Lisa, what are you seeing there?
Well, certainly busy in the parking lot here, Chris, but also busy inside. Just a few minutes ago, I took a walk inside. A lot of people, lineups as well. Not a whole lot of meat on the shelves nor fruit. Now, this is not just the case here at the No Frills, but at grocery stores across the city where I visited. But even though this is the case, experts are still saying don't panic buy because the food won't run out. Toilet paper, paper towels, canned goods, even meat. All sections of many grocery stores in Ontario empty. Some shoppers only came for a few items. Instead, their weekly grocery routine was anything but.
It's crazy in there. I really didn't believe it. I heard about it, but lots of the shelves are empty.
Others were on more of a mission.
We don't know how these grocery stores are going to handle such high influx of people coming in, and so we decided to get as much as possible today.
But a lot of the goods were already gone by the time they got there.
We wanted to stock up on frozen vegetables. There were none left, absolutely nothing. All the shelves are cleared. Yeah, there's no pasta, there's no rice, there's no canned goods. No chicken, almost no meat at all. So basically whatever was left that we could have gotten.
The No Frills by our house is there was a 45-minute wait to get in, so we had to come here.
The same story across the city and country, with chaotic scenes inside and outside of grocery stores, as more and more people are stockpiling supplies, fearing COVID-19 will continue to spread. At this Loblaws at Queen and Portland, reports of a scuffle between two people, one of whom had a gun. It didn't seem to be related to a shortage of supplies, but nevertheless, it added to a stressful day for the employees who intervened.
He got dragged down one full aisle and then up to the front, yeah.
He's a pretty strong dude, I'll give him that, but I'm glad we got him. It just shows that we gotta all just be together, man. It's the only way to beat this crap. Sorry. It's the only way to beat this stuff. You just gotta be together.
Demand at independent stores is also up, according to vendors who supply them at the Ontario Food Terminal.
We have seen a recent spike in business, and when I say recent, I'm talking about yesterday and today, about a 25 to 40% increase.
But prices aren't up yet because it's March break and typically there's more stock because families go away on vacation. This consumer psychology expert explains the phenomenon of panic buying.
People are in that context trying to take control of the situation, trying to engage in human scale activity that will, one, give them practical protections, and two, will give them a sense of control over a seemingly chaotic and uncertain situation.
So experts are unequivocally saying do not panic buy and don't hoard food, using Italy as an example, considering the scale of the situation there. There is still food and supplies in grocery stores, and the reason they're giving for suggesting this is simply because it's good manners so that there's more of this stuff to go around, Chris.
Good manners. All right, well, thanks for this, Lisa. The coronavirus pandemic has prompted the federal government to ask all Canadians to avoid non-essential travel abroad. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau talked about it at a press conference today. He also assured Canadians that his government would help them with the financial fallout from the crisis.
I know that you're worried. You're worried about your health, about your family's health, about your job, your savings, about paying rent, about the kids not being in school. I know that you're concerned about uncertainty in the global economy. The steps being taken to keep you safe have an economic impact. But what is also true is that we are in the enviable position of having significant fiscal firepower available to support you.
Trudeau there appearing in front of his home in Ottawa. He's in self-isolation because his wife has tested positive for COVID-19, but he says he's not experiencing any symptoms. The Friday before March break is usually one of the busiest of the year at Toronto's Pearson Airport. But fears over the coronavirus and the warning against international travel from the Prime Minister has Canada's largest airport unusually quiet tonight. Natalie Nanowski joins us live from Pearson. Natalie, I can see some folks behind you. Clearly not all Canadians are listening to the warning.
They're not, but despite that, Chris, it is so quiet. I haven't seen it pretty much this empty on most travel days, never mind the first day before March break really kicks off. But as you said, there are some people here that are still traveling. Now, we spoke to some. They told us, many of them told us that they've had these vacations in line for quite some time, so they really didn't want to cancel them. They said, though, that they are going to be taking extra precautions like washing their hands and wiping down surfaces.
Pearson Airport is nowhere near as packed as you'd expect the Friday before March break. This was last year. And check out the lines in 2018. Today, there's plenty of kiosks open and some travelers determined to go on vacation despite the government's warning.
This is something that we've been working towards, and as long as we all stay, healthy and be mindful, I'm not too worried.
But others didn't want to risk it and came to the airport to cancel.
We made a decision to come by today and fix it, right? Because Air Canada, we can't call them. So phone lines are off. You can't reschedule over the phone, so everybody's pretty much here. We've been waiting for over 4 hours.
Most airlines have updated their cancellation policies following the government's request. Air Canada is now offering a free one-time change to any flight, or customers can cancel their trip for a full credit. They just have to use it before the end of the year. WestJet is also offering a free one-time change, or cancel and get WestJet dollars. Flight Centre and Sunwing are also offering changes, but many people haven't been able to get through to their call centers, so they don't know exactly how this is going to play out.
We already committed to the money and the trips, so if they allow us to go at a different time, we're up for that.
So the airlines and all the providers tell us that they are aware of the longer wait times, and they of course apologize, but they do stress that this is a very fluid and unprecedented situation. Now, they are offering free cancellations and free rebookings for people traveling until the end of February. However, they are urging people to be patient and don't call to try and cancel your trip unless you're flying within 72 hours. Chris?
Thanks, Natalie. Still ahead, President Trump declares coronavirus a national emergency.
Two very big words. The action I am taking will open up access to up to $50 billion of very important and a large amount of money for states and territories and localities in our shared fight against this disease.
How the U.S. is leaning on companies like Google and Walmart to help ramp up testing for the coronavirus. That's coming up in just a few minutes. So we do have much more coming up on the coronavirus outbreak. Coming up, we're going to head to one of the top hospitals in the world that back in October, it was the Johns Hopkins Hospital, and they ran a simulation that anticipated just this kind of an outbreak and how it would multiply, with cases doubling every week. What else they found in just a few minutes. Time now for a first look at your weather forecast with Suzanne Leonard. And Suzanne, some sun finally shining down on me this morning.
Oh, bless your heart. Sunshine through the afternoon as well. What a blustery day, though, Chris. It has been 11 degrees this morning. 11 degrees if you're a really early riser. We hit 11 at about 4 o'clock. Hamilton and St. Catharines, yeah, I didn't experience that either. So our daytime highs and then our current temperatures where we're sitting now. And Chris is right. I mean, we had some sun this morning, but more sun this afternoon as those westerly winds really blew away some of the cloud. Fast-moving low, still a strong storm system, this particular low as far as northern Ontario, Quebec is concerned. Further south, 30, 40, 50 kilometer an hour winds out of the west. When you factor in those gusts, it is very blustery still, and that will continue the trend through the evening hours as the storm system races off across the north, and we're dealing with the residual strong winds after that cold front roaring through. Now, it is in the long range going to be at a bit of an up and down for temperatures. We should be around +3, daytime highs, -6, overnight lows at this time of year. So we were well above average today. We will be about average tomorrow, but backing it up to this evening, still strong westerlies, blustery, starting to diminish through the overnight, backing towards the north tomorrow. Northerly winds often spell cold weather. We'll talk more in detail about the colder, warmer trend in the long-range forecast.
Yeah, let's leave that till later.
Okay.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Thank you.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
As the number of cases of COVID-19 surge around the globe, the World Health Organization is pointing to Europe as the new hub for the virus.
Europe has now become the epicenter of the pandemic, with more reported cases and deaths than the rest of the world combined, apart from China. More cases are now being reported every day than were reported in China at the highest of its epidemic.
More than 22,000 cases of COVID-19 have been confirmed across Europe, and more than 1,000 people so far have died on the continent. Italy is the worst hit and has been on lockdown since Tuesday, but places like France, Ireland, and Norway have shut down their schools. Spain has a growing number of cases and is expected to declare a state of emergency. The coronavirus is officially a national emergency in the United States. The president made the declaration this afternoon, announcing new measures to fight the illness and stabilize the economy. It comes as Donald Trump's administration faces continued scrutiny and criticism for its handling of the outbreak. Katie Simpson has more.
By declaring a national emergency, the U.S. government will now have access to up to $50 billion in funding that had been put aside for a situation just like this, an emergency. President Donald Trump made the announcement in the White House Rose Garden today alongside members of his coronavirus task force. Some of the money will be used to improve the testing process, which has been terribly slow and deeply problematic in the U.S. The declaration waives certain restrictive regulations, which means more medical professionals can do the tests at more locations. And the government is partnering with the private sector to expand the number of drive-through testing facilities and to set up a website so someone can see if they actually do need a test.
We don't want everybody taking this test. It's totally unnecessary. And this will pass. This will pass through, and we're going to be even stronger for it.
Trump has dramatically changed his tone after repeatedly saying that anyone who wants a test can get one. Right now, in the United States, that is not true. And there is widespread bipartisan criticism of the Trump administration for over-promising the availability of those tests. Trump was asked if he takes personal responsibility for the failure of the testing system, and he said no.
No, I don't take responsibility at all, because we were given a set of circumstances, and we were given rules, regulations, and specifications from a different time. Wasn't meant for this kind of an event.
Until there is more testing in the U.S., public health officials will not be able to determine the scope of the problem, let alone deal with it. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
The U.S. president has said COVID-19 took the world by surprise, but researchers at a leading American university say it did not. Armed with reams of data and cold, hard math, months ago they modeled how an outbreak like this would unfold. And as Adrienne Arsenault explains, the virus is behaving exactly as predicted in that simulated crisis.
This board has been urgently convened by the World Economic Forum.
It was a new coronavirus and spreading fast, killing 7% of those infected.
We could be looking at double the number of cases in 1 week.
That was the drastic fictional scenario drilled at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore last October, with health and industry officials from around the world imagining the what-ifs.
I worry we're suffering from a delusional disorder.
If they contribute more, that they will have a better chance.
You need the money. So where's the money?
Within 8 weeks, it had all happened. The real COVID-19 is less lethal, but the disruptions are exactly as anticipated. The stock plunges, stranded cruise ships, canceled events, all unfolding on schedule as they did in the simulation. Back in October, made-up newscasts told the stories.
Public health agencies have issued travel advisories.
Dr. Eric Toner ran the October simulation, said it was clear then to all the nations participating that travel bans didn't work, caused enormous economic harm. In the simulation, a few countries still went ahead with them, but not many.
What did you think when you heard the president's travel ban?
Well, I think travel bans are ill-advised. They are counterproductive. They certainly would not do anything useful currently. There's plenty of COVID-19 in the United States.
So you were mad?
I was disappointed. I think we've been focused on the idea that we could contain the disease elsewhere, keep it out of this country. I think that was obviously not true from the very beginning. And we should have been spending the last 2 months getting prepared.
The future? Johns Hopkins runs an hourly interactive map of the infections. Watch North America, France, and Germany to change fast, Dr. Toner says. An infection rate doubling roughly every week, just as predicted.
And that, of course, was Adrienne Arsenault reporting from Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. Coming up next.
We know that this virus has created impacts on our economy, and we're ready to address these impacts.
And that includes an injection of billions of dollars into the banking system and yet another emergency interest rate cut. We'll have more on how Ottawa is taking on the coronavirus after the break.
The City of Toronto is canceling all programs and closing a number of its facilities as of 12:01 a.m. tomorrow.
Major city services are shutting down amid a growing number of COVID-19 cases, all in an effort to protect the most vulnerable and slow the rate of infection. Libraries, daycares, rec centers, and museums will all be affected. But the TTC and essential services, including emergency response by fire, police, and paramedics, will keep running. Meanwhile, Canadians should not leave the country amid this COVID-19 pandemic. That's the advice from health officials today. The federal government also announced billions of dollars will start to flow to deal with the impact the containment of the virus is already having on the workforce and the economy. Julie Van Duzen is in Ottawa tonight.
The Prime Minister spoke to Canadians from home, where he and his children are in isolation.
Most of the morning, the kids have been doing Lego.
And where his wife Sophie is quarantined after testing positive for COVID-19.
I will remain in self-isolation for 14 days. I want to be clear, I have no symptoms.
His government is issuing many directives, all coming at a fast pace. Canadians are being urged to cancel or postpone any international trip, in the very least because if they leave Canada, they may get stuck abroad in a COVID-19 crackdown.
We are considering all travel outside of Canada to be considered high risk for Canadians right now.
Your one-week trip may become much longer. You may also have reduced access to quality health care.
International flights will be directed to a smaller number of airports in Canada so that passengers can be more easily tracked and more rigorously screened if they are from high-risk areas. Cruise ships with 500 passengers or more will be banned from Canadian ports until July 1st, when the decision will be reassessed. As for a further tightening of Canada's borders to outsiders, not for now, but not ruled out.
We're not closing the door to any further steps, but we will make those decisions based on what science tells us.
These are extraordinary times.
In a rare appearance together, the Finance Minister and the Governor of the Bank of Canada announced measures to help prop up the economy, including another rate cut of 0.5 percentage point, the second in 9 days.
We stand ready to take further action if we think it's needed.
And Bill Morneau says there will be $10 billion more in credit for businesses to tap into. Next week, there will be more measures to help workers.
So we're looking at direct measures to support individuals and families.
Also today, the House of Commons shut down with the agreement of all parties at least until April 20th. Before politicians left town, the new NAFTA trade deal was passed. Everything else is on hold, while the government focuses on this pandemic. Julie Van Duzen, CBC News, Ottawa.
So we're all being advised of the value of social distancing as a way to limit the spread of the coronavirus. Christine Birak now with how that works in everyday life.
Putting at least a meter between yourself and someone who might be sick isn't always easy.
This is roughly the distance that's being recommended. So if you're near someone, is this comfortable?
Considering the situation, yes.
For others, it seems unrealistic.
Honestly, like in crowded areas, probably not.
Scientists say social distancing can make a difference if done early enough.
This virus moves really quickly, and that's what we really need to try and work on in terms of mitigation right now.
Singapore and South Korea both have large numbers of infections, but they're keeping people apart. No big gatherings. They even have drive-through virus testing. Unlike Italy, neither country has locked down its residents, but the pace of outbreaks has slowed down, and researchers say Canada could do the same.
It's not outside the realm of possibility.
The research isn't peer-reviewed yet, but models at the University of Toronto suggest even if they find and isolate mild cases, half of the people in Ontario could become infected. But with social distancing measures, people working from home, school closures, canceling of sports events, concerts, and conferences, models show the number of new infections drops significantly, allowing hospitals to keep up with the number of sick patients.
Unfortunately, there's no silver bullet here. There's not going to be one intervention that we can do that's going to make this go away. But I think that social distancing is a really key component.
What do we do on a daily basis where we're in close contact with people around us. And what can we do to try and maybe limit some of those interactions?
Keeping people apart will be socially disruptive and economically damaging, but scientists insist it will also save lives. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, we're going to move on from the coronavirus for a moment, but remember, you can find the very latest on the pandemic anytime online at cbcnews.ca or download the CBC News app. Turning now to other news, and a look into racism at the Peel District School Board came out today. 3 reviewers reported to the Education Minister they heard from hundreds of people to compile their report. Lorenda Redekop has more on what it found and the reaction.
Shame!
Shame on you.
83%.
It's become heated as Black parents have urged the Peel District School Board to do something about racism.
Fight for Black students!
Now this report to the Education Minister
unveils a deep-seated culture of discrimination, racism that is deeply disturbing, to be quite frank.
While Black students are 10% of the board's population, they make up 22% of school suspensions, including children as young as 4. Among the examples the report found, a principal, in response to a pizza meeting for Black students, saying not one of those students was worth the price of pizza. Plus, inappropriate nicknames for schools. Even an elected school board official referred to McCrimmon Middle School as McCriminal.
And I want the board to know that we're watching them and expect them to implement these recommendations, knowing that I have additional powers should I need.
Among the 29 recommendations, the board immediately issue a public apology for the McCrimmon Middle School incident, mediation for all trustees to address and resolve dysfunction, and a 4-year strategy to address disproportionate outcomes for Black and other racialized students. The Peel District School Board agreed to act on the recommendations in a statement saying it is clear that many individuals have been negatively affected over the years, and we apologize for the trauma and hurt they've experienced. Charlene Grant has been to a Peel Board meeting.
Sitting in that room, I was blown away by how embedded it is in the system and how even the dysfunction of the trustees.
She's a parent from York Region, where a trustee called her the N-word and later resigned.
Doesn't matter what city you're from or what area, when we talk to parents, we hear the same stories.
She'd like a larger provincial review of what's happening. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Where is my money? That is the question a Toronto man is asking after he says TD lost his retirement savings. The bank denies it, but the man claims the missing money would likely be worth about $100,000. John Lancaster has the details.
Bob Grossman's problems started last spring. A few weeks before his 60th birthday, he went to this TD branch at Yonge and Sheppard to check on his retirement savings plan. What he found out floored him.
For some reason or strange reason, my profile was empty and they couldn't find my RSP.
He spent the last year fighting TD to find out what happened. Grossman gave the bank copies of his RRSP statements and tax documents showing that as far back as 1996, he had more than $37,000 invested. That could be worth more than $100,000 today. But in documents Grossman shared with CBC News, the bank insisted it had no records on file about his RSP. After CBC News called TD this week, it told the 60-year-old it found some documentation after all. It says Grossman did have a TD RSP, but he closed it in 2000 after the funds were withdrawn. TD didn't provide him with any detailed documentation, just a 4-line ledger claiming he withdrew the funds 20 years ago.
It just tells me that on June 29, 2000, there is no money in my RSP.
Because it was withdrawn, they say.
They said on here, withdrawal, interest credit, closed account, end of day balance.
Did you withdraw that money?
No.
Grossman supplied CBC News with Canada Revenue Agency documents that appear to show if the RRSP had been cashed, TD Bank didn't report it to the CRA as the bank was obligated to do. The bank says it couldn't have closed the RRSP without Grossman's consent. He says he never gave consent to anyone to cash it in.
I figure it's secure. The money's secure. I'm not looking for a big return, just a safe return. And what happens? The money's gone.
TD Bank declined to respond to specific questions from CBC News, but says it stands by its original investigation last year. John Lancaster, CBC News, Toronto.
Remember, if you have a story you'd like us to look into, we would love to hear from you. Send us an email, torontotips@cbc.ca. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Suzanne Leonard joins us again with a look at your long-range forecast. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Suzanne's back with another look at the weather forecast. And Suzanne, with so many inside events canceled or postponed, tell me at least the weather is nice outside this weekend.
You know, that really is some good timing here in a pretty difficult situation, Chris, of course, for everyone. Getting outdoors and getting some fresh air, good for your mental health. It's a great activity for the kids as well. And of course, there's always typically a lot more space between you and the next person when you are in your backyard or in your local park. So as far as current temperatures are concerned, they're pretty comfortable for now, not the double digits. Hamilton got to 11 degrees this morning, as you may have heard us say earlier. Still quite blustery through the evening. We'll get to your temperatures in just a moment, but a lot of really good sky cover in terms of bright weather. Winds coming out of the north through the day tomorrow and through the day on Sunday, but you'll notice these numbers are going down, so we go from being blustery to just being occasionally a little bit breezy. If we look at the satellite and radar, satellite shows cloud cover, radar shows precipitation. The main energy is well up to the north with this system, tearing off the fronts off through Atlantic Canada. The cold front roared through the GTA early this morning between 7 and 7:20. The temperature started to drop and the dew points, the levels of humidity as well. So that drier, crisper air mass moved in quite quickly, dried up certainly the wind, any precipitation that we had. What's ahead is pretty precipitation free, at least as far as southern Ontario is concerned. We'll see a few passing clouds. Next chance of a sprinkle would be Monday overnight to Tuesday. By the way, some big snow in Alberta and very cold temperatures continuing at this hour and in the short range forecast. So that's where winter has tucked away. For now, we're dealing very much with a late winter pattern. We should be about -3 at this time of year, -6, pardon me, and +3 for a daytime high. So those forecast conditions are pretty much seasonal. Little up and down at this time of year as cold air tries to hold on and warm air tries to surge north from the more southerly latitudes. A little up and down. Monday night, Tuesday, some active weather and certainly active, potentially stormy weather. Late week, Chris, maybe Thursday, could be rain, snow to the north, maybe even freezing rain. That's long range. Enjoy this fair weather.
Yeah, at least that sunshine for the weekend. Thanks, Suzanne.
Thanks.
This weather update is brought to you by Fairmont Le Chateau Frontenac, the best location for your next spring break getaway in Quebec City.
Next, the fight to save an institution and a village.
Just how much is the gay village changing? People are panicking after learning this popular bar could be replaced by a condo. I'm Angelina King on Church Street. I'll have more on the fight to save it and the changing face of the neighborhood. That's coming up.
The fight is on to save an iconic bar in Toronto's gay village. Cruise and Tangos, which has become synonymous with launching drag queens' careers, could be turned into a condo. A proposal to develop the site is in the works in a neighborhood where construction noise and cranes are already common. Angelina King has more on the fight to save the bar and the ongoing changes to the area.
Carlotta Carlisle did her first drag show 13 years ago at Cruise and Tangos. Now she's a regular performer.
Cruise is one of the few places where you'll get, gay men, straight women, gay women. Everyone has their own little place here.
The popular three-story bar hosts drag shows every night and has become iconic in the gay village. But for many, it's become much more.
It's like a home. You walk in, this building looks like, it's like an old mansion full of joy and color and rainbows and drag queens.
Jordan Timmons is one of them. Yeah. Baby Belle Belle is the reigning Miss Cruise and Tangos after winning last year's annual pageant on the same stage Timmons grew up watching other queens for inspiration.
It feels like they're kind of erasing our history.
More than 30,000 people have signed a petition to save it.
It's a space for LGBT people and really anyone who wants to feel included, to be included and to feel safe. We are losing these spaces so quickly.
On this corner alone, a high-rise is being built on the south side, and then just across the street, a popular gay bar and other businesses closed in the summer to make room for another condo. The site has now been changed to a 34-story rental building. In this portion of the village, there are 10 proposed developments and 5 under construction, most of them condos, with more just outside those boundaries.
Zippers used to be over here on the corner, which is something of an iconic bar, obviously long gone.
Nikki Ward has seen the changes while living here for nearly 20 years. She welcomes development as long as the community is properly consulted and the history and character of the neighborhood is preserved. Do you think it's like the villages one day might no longer be the village?
No.
How come?
There's an iconic value to that just, you know, it's almost mythological. It doesn't really matter who's here.
This proposed development is still in the early stages. No application has been filed yet with the city. In a statement, Greywood Development says it will work with the community to understand the vision and values of the neighborhood to inform its development proposal. The show goes on for now. Cruise and Tango's recently signed a 2-year lease extension, but many hope it'll stay open much longer than that. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Coming up, with the entire country under a lockdown, we take a look at how some Italians are finding ways to connect with each other through song. We'll be right back. COVID-19 continues to impact Italy, the European hot zone for the virus. The country's 60 million residents are dealing with a countrywide lockdown, but they're finding creative ways to come together, including musical performances from their balconies. Megan Williams has more from her own balcony in Rome.
The
national anthem is blasting. My neighbors are clapping every direction. You can't see them all, but everybody's out to show solidarity and to break through the sense of isolation that has settled down on this country like a dark cloud. It's an expression of solidarity with all of the people who are shut in their homes and all of the people who are struggling with illness right now. This country is a country renowned the world over for its physical affection, for coming together in piazzas, for its gioia di vita. And this is just one way that it's expressing this in a very difficult time. There'll be another one tomorrow night with a different song, and even Sunday night, il cielo diventa sempre più azzurro. The sky keeps getting bluer. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
I couldn't even imagine being in isolation. Now 4 days of a countrywide lockdown, and you actually have family in Italy right now.
My sister and her family, they live north of Milan, and they've been in lockdown since, well, let's just say that the Mardi Gras Ash Wednesday long weekend holiday got extended by a whole month.
How are they doing?
Pretty well. Homeschooling for the kids. 13-year-old not doing quite as well with concentrating on that. The weather is warm. And my sister says that that's, you know, it gives you a sense of hope and you can get outside. But it really is a lockdown situation. You can't travel far. Just groceries.
Wow. And how about the weather here? How are we doing?
Well, we are doing very well. And I enjoyed that Italian music, too. It made me smile. You know, you take it where you can get it, right? 1 this evening. It's still gusty out there. The roads are dry. Clear skies overnight. Good night for stargazing if you're into that kind of thing. 5 degrees tomorrow. Northwest wind, so still a little crisp, cool, that dry air, but it will be great for getting outdoors.
Perfect. I never managed to see very many stars from my balcony.
No,
but that's okay.
In the city, but keep trying.
I will.
Watch the moon.
And that is our show for tonight. Have a great night.